are literally shaping the planet.
Purpose is the only pathway to a regenerative future.
We have a choice to stay with the status quo or to change.
What is the point of trying to be just resilient when we can actually innovate?
I'm psyched to be here virtually with all of you. So I brought along a few friends, as you can see, and we're going to talk about how technology can be used in simple yet powerful ways to increase access and drive social justice in American cities. So we're all founders from different corners of the real estate industry. So my name is Atif, and I'm the founder and CEO of REDIST. And we are a B2B SaaS company, and we make it easy to find and use the $100 billion of real estate incentives that are given out every year in the US. So we're basically rethinking how the public and private sectors can work together to make better use of all of our taxpayers' money. So we're proud to be in the Shadow Labs incubator, and background-wise, I'm a licensed architect turned real estate developer and serve as a city planning commission in my hometown of Hoboken, New Jersey. So shout out to my Jersey folks on the call. And then Matthias is next. Could you please tell us about your background?
Cool. And do you want me to show my slides already?
Sure, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Yeah, so my name is Matthias Hollwich. I'm the founder of HWKN, which is an architectural firm based in New York. What we also do is we go deep into innovation. I also started Architizer, which is a social media firm for architects with multi-million people joining us and following us. I'm also starting right now a new venture, which is called Flex, which is about the future of living. And in our architecture, maybe we'll just want to show an example. For example, here, very close to New York, just 10 minutes away, we're doing the first high-density transit-oriented development in America outside of Manhattan. We have here an incredible scale where we can go with 25 FAR. That means 25 the floor plate where the building sits on as a building assemble with 1,800 units. And first phase is done, second phase is almost done. Here, this is really about creating density close to transportation, but then also having all the kind of different amenities in here that, of course, give people a lot of reasons to be there. The next generation, what we're doing right now, it's even more exciting. We're doing that in Cologne, where I'm speaking from right now. We're using all the activities for people and super intensifying them in the building. So a very simple massing where we're bringing all the kind of different program elements in it. So super mixed use between office, co-working, hotel, apartments, but then also these moments of delight where we always bring in something for people on the base and on the top and everywhere in between. So this is basically our vision, so that we always create unforgettable architecture through the program components in architecture.
Awesome. Thank you, Matthias. Scott, how about you?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me today. We are when it relates to the city and to real estate, our business is on the construction side. I'm with I'm founder and CEO of a company called Levelset. And I think when you walk into our building, and our mission is written on our wall, and it really says it all with respect to what we do, what we strive for, which is we exist to empower people in the industry to always be able to get what they earn. And so there's a really big challenge, and it's an equitable challenge, an access to justice challenge, a real cash stress and payment stress for everybody who is putting in labor and materials into all the construction jobs that go into building cities. And I'll talk a little bit about it throughout the panel today, I think, around some of the complications there. But our technology fits in there, is used by subs and suppliers to manage paperwork, compliance, and some of the rights that they have to get paid on a job. And we've been doing it for almost 10 years now. And it's have a great number of contractors, a couple right in the tens of thousands of contractors across the country who use us.
That's really impressive. Thank you, Scott and Atticus.
Are you going to Scott or me first?
You're first. You're next.
Great. Yeah, and apologize having a little bit of technical difficulties here. But my name is Atticus LeBlanc, and I'm the founder and CEO of PadSplit. We are a marketplace that leverages affordable housing for financial independence for low-income Americans. What that really means is that we provide opportunities for investors, homeowners, housing providers across the board in the country to leverage unmonetized or underutilized spaces and use those residential spaces for affordable housing creation. We were founded in 2017 and now have about 1,100 units. My background personally is in housing. I've been an entrepreneur for the last 15 years, been an entrepreneur in the housing space for the last 12, and have a lot of familiarity with traditional housing programs. But this was a way to really incentivize private market to create affordable housing without subsidy in a way that hasn't been done before, because there's clearly not nearly enough to go around to meet the gap that we need.
That's terrific. So let's dive right in. So what is the problem that you're looking to solve, and how did you come across it? I'll start off first. So for me, with REDIST, the reality is that it's really, really hard to find and use the public incentives for real estate that total $100 billion. And for me, I was able to see that both working for a large corporate firm in New York and then starting my own real estate development firm. So it was literally something I saw and experienced every single day of my career.
It's funny. I think these problems are very commonly the ones that I think you sort of live in or experience in some way. Even though our two businesses with REDIST and Levelset are really quite different in a way with respect to the customer base.
Yeah.
And the underpinnings are the same. My background was construction law. I was a lawyer, had some technical experience as well. And it just like the tax incentives are just a intricate web of rules and things that all these rules and all these complications, they create a barrier for people to use them. Yeah. And it's the same thing in construction with respect to people's ability to get paid and the process of getting paid. It's the complexity and the regulations is a barrier.
Yeah, and from our standpoint, it's simply that the frontline workers who are largely the backbone, and I think have gone largely underappreciated, at least until the most recent pandemic, don't have access to affordable housing options or housing options, period. If you think about, and I hear the idea bantied around, okay, well, how many $1,000 a month apartments do we have in our metropolitan area? Well, the unfortunate reality is, even if you have $1,000 a month apartment, if that property manager is looking at an income requirement of 3 times the monthly rent, well, you've cut out a massive portion of population that equates to around 14 million people around the country that simply don't have any access to those opportunities. And so it's virtually impossible in this country today to pick yourself up by the bootstraps if you are a single person household with a relatively low income job that comprises most of our workforce today.
And in your particular group, you're focused in Atlanta, and if I'm not mistaken, some of the earliest customers that you had were otherwise traveling an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to their work in downtown, right? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So the story you're referencing is not an uncommon one, but one that I talk about a lot for a particular woman who was a pastry chef in Midtown who was commuting an hour and a half each way. And we hear those stories over and over and over. And as much as people like to decry increasing traffic in cities, we conveniently forget that what we're forcing to happen is these workers, whether it's the pastry chef or the cashier at the grocery store or the security guard or teaching assistant or what have you, are often having to commute an hour and a half to 2 hours to 3 hours even each direction in order to find something that's workable. And so when you really combine housing plus transportation costs, it's an increasingly untenable situation.
The word, such an anchor word that is said so far by everybody, which is the word access.
Yeah.
And when I was practicing law years ago, there's a whole section of law that has that lawyers work on what's called access to justice, and there's a lot of like investment in that. or, education in that in the legal community. But what I love about technology is technology can like bring that access to people's doorsteps in ways that the institutions just can't. And it's I think that's one of the things that's most exciting about what the future could hold through the lens of technology.
I think, Scott, you're exactly right. Like Matthias, in reading New Aging, here's like a Matthias's amazing book, New Aging. I think you talk a lot about access, particularly for older generations and how our urban environment can change. Could you talk about that problem in that context?
Yeah, so maybe to give a little bit more context. So for the last couple of years, as an architecture firm, we have helped a lot of brands to really come up with more innovative housing products. We work for WeWork quite a bit on WeLive, which unfortunately now it's not moving ahead. But we also work with The Collective. We work with Kaufmann on Gravity. Right now we're doing iLive, which is the largest micro-housing development in Germany. So through this, we always looked into how can we make it more affordable by being conscious about the size, construction cost, and still go into urban centers. But what I always missed here is looking broader into an intergenerational perspective, because most of these products are geared towards younger people, so millennials or Gen Z. And the book, which was developed in collaboration with the University of Pennsylvania, and Bruce Mao really looked into first empowering people to make changes in their own life and finding ways how they can actually get access and find better places to live. And now we actually looking into using all of that kind of knowledge to create that new product, which we call Flex. What's very exciting about this is that we want people to buy an apartment, which is actually a 2-bedroom apartment. But the way how we designed it is that they can always rent out either way a studio, which is one of the rooms, or a 1-bedroom, and you can subsidize your own mortgage. And with this, build much faster equity, but also live closer to other people, eliminate loneliness. And so there's a lot of things right now coming together, which for us is very exciting, where we try to solve a lot of things now with one new product that we start to build in America.
That's awesome. So the theme of access, of togetherness, of rethinking how our urban environment is created, so much of these 4 businesses we talked about are originating because of issues related to our economic system or faults in our public policy. Starting with Scott, could you talk about what was sort of the origin from that perspective of Levelset, the nature of the mechanic?
Yeah, I tell a story of the founding of, there's a few different angles to the founding of the company, but one of them is when I was practicing law, I had clients coming to me constantly. They always having payment problems. Contractors are having cash and payment problems all the time. And there was one. It was a contractor. It was a minority-owned business, and so there's a whole thing around like DMEs and minority-owned businesses in construction. The guy was really uneducated. He couldn't read and write, basically. He had this job that was a couple $100,000, and he was owed this money for doing the work, but he didn't even have his payment application, and I had to get it by requesting it from the other party, and it was written out like $100,000 written out a bunch of chicken scratch, right? Because he was so buried, right, by the process that it didn't matter whether he was owed the money or not. And it didn't matter. And there was nothing I could do there was nothing that I could do to help him really, because it was too far gone, and et cetera, et cetera. And so one of the things that I came across, it was the lien originally, which is a lien is a right that was invented, by the way, by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. It's the first labor law in the world, which is a law that's in place to protect workers, to make sure they get paid for the work that they do. And, it's very intimidating. Before Levelset, it was extremely intimidating to get a lien filed or to use the lien rights, because you had to get an attorney, you had to pay a retainer, those are very intimidating things, and they cost a lot of money. And, you know, if this contractor, when they got to me, if they had something before, like Levelset, you know, it would have been giving them access to this remedy, giving them access to the labor law, basically, that protects them. And so the genesis was, I tell the story of that one person because it was such a profound separation from where he was and like where he should have been. It was such an inequitable situation, but they had a whole spectrum of them and tons, and it's just constantly coming through your office. And as an attorney, you're just trying to like rescue these bad situations that could have been prevented if they just used the public policy that existed, because the laws and the public policy are coming out daily almost across the country to continue to provide protections to these people. But they're just, you know, they're hard to get your hands around them.
Sure. And so Atticus, Scott mentioned the customer for his product Levelset being a contractor and contractors of any scale. From your perspective, who do you consider your customer? Is it the tenant in the building owner, something broader than that? How do you think of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a marketplace, so both is the answer. I mean, we have to consider, we sit in the middle between the housing provider and the folks that need the housing, the members in our case, who act as the residents or tenants, and I think we have to find the middle ground between those. And I mean, as you talk about public policy as well, I think it's worth bringing up here, particularly when we start talking about structural inequity and how zoning laws in this country have historically been discriminatory against people that are certainly low income. And once you start to correlate race and income, you realize that there's some real racial underpinnings there going back over 100 years. But really for who we consider our core customer, only because no one else focuses on them, are the sub 50% AMI population. And it is that group of frontline workers who simply just don't have any other options.
And area median income, right?
That's correct. Yep. So our average income is $25,000 a year. Our population is 97.5% African American. Average credit score is 460 when they come to us. And so we have to take a holistic approach to address both the needs of that population while also trying to figure out a way to underwrite them for the housing providers who are looking ultimately at the bottom line. But historically, it's just been a real challenge. There's a lot to unwind in this country from a policy standpoint to serve that customer because the cards have been stacked against them for a long time. And we are very much motivated to solve that, to create the housing continuum that I think we all think should exist.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to hear both Scott and Atticus what you said, because with REDIST, I think it's this, it's the way that policy is set up with the distribution of incentives and massively also how it's actually executed and rolled out. So the idea being that, sure, you have a particular tax credit or a tax abatement in the books, but because the distribution system is so fragmented, information is so incredibly hard to find, and there's very little in terms of benchmarking and reporting. So there's no sort of feedback loop of how to improve. You end up with this blob of stuff, but essentially $100 billion of our taxpayer money just kind of put out there to hopefully improve real estate development. And I think one thing that's particularly interesting is the consequence of all of that is that this idea of a prisoner's dilemma, because if you are an economic development agency director in the city of New Haven, there's no official feedback loop or any comparison system for you to see what the city of Bridgeport is doing. For example, that's kind of an adjacency, and you can take that adjacency anywhere across the country. So you end up having situations where the state of Wisconsin gave a $4 billion incentive package to Foxconn to build a new factory in Wisconsin without any sort of feedback associated with it. So I think in a similar way, this idea of information and access and public policy mixed together, we're experiencing as well. Matthias, from your perspective, could you talk about some of the, say, design and construction issues that make senior living and senior housing a difficult or a challenge to work with?
Yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating. For senior living, there's really like a big industry in America that's actually quite profitable, but super abusive. When you look a little bit deeper down, you have like nursing homes, you have assisted living that is very regulated, but it's also, in doing my early times when I made analysis, right, in California, they were very proud that they were able to reduce the amount of older people living in one apartment from 6 down to 5, great achievement. And then there's still Medicare, Medicaid relationships, and people try to keep them, of course, on the profitable level and so on. And then there's the other side, which is also the glamorous kind of the villages, for example, in Florida, which is a thriving community, which is age-restricted living. But we're seeing that this is right now it kind of has run its course. Because finally the boomers have woken up, and this is not anymore what they want. First of all, they want to have freedom, not ending up in a nursing home, or they also don't just want to be somewhere in Florida and hanging out in the villages. So that's why there's like an incredible opportunity right now to come up with new ideas to serve that community much, much better. But it's really interesting that I've given so many presentations and conferences over the last couple of years. There was a lot of hesitation for innovation, but now it got cracked open, and COVID-19 has supercharged the changes because people have seen the numbers of people passing in these age communities, and now people want to basically make a change. And so now it's the time to jump into this and really come up with something that is dignified, self-determined, and also affordable, which is a key component to it.
That's a really great point you brought up, Matthias, this idea of urgency and of the moment. I think what each of us is doing in terms of advocating for small business owners in the construction industry, for low-income renters, for real estate developers and investors, and then for seniors, all of that comes to a head with the pandemic and then the economic impacts of that pandemic now and then going forth the next year to 2 years. I'm curious about some of the technology that is underpinning each of the things that we're doing. If you wouldn't mind, Atticus, could you start and talk a little bit about the technology that is creating and allowing your marketplace to function?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for us is just with the advent of payments processing technology, what that's allowed us to do is just reimagine what a tenant customer experience should feel like based on actual customer discovery, as opposed to the golden rule, he who has the gold makes the rules. And something simple like what day of the week is the first of the month, because that's the day that rent should always be due on, but no one ever starts to correlate what day of the week that actually falls on or how that relates to your pay period. And for us, thinking about and creating a technical product that can serve your holistic lifestyle, right? So it's fully furnished, all utilities, Wi-Fi, laundry, telemedicine, and then credit reporting. But the technology is built to include all of these things into one package that's based on your actual pay period. So even if we have 10 people in a home, you can collect everybody's payment based on their pay periods, even though they may all be different. Whereas a housing provider really just wants one payment per month. And so that's a big part of it. But the rest of it is lead generation, screening, which is another massive side of our business. And then the rating systems to keep accountability across the board, where residents can rate their housing provider, they can rate their other roommates, just to maintain the alignment of incentives across all stakeholders.
Yeah, that's really that's really interesting to see, because it's a lot of existing technologies that you're going to be that you put together in order to create something that's really useful. And in a similar way for REDIST, like when you break down the technology of what we do, it's essentially clean, organize, and visualize information. And then there's a body of programs and languages that we use to do each of those three things. But that in a nutshell is exactly what we're doing, whether it's an actual GIS file which shows the boundaries, the geographic boundaries for a particular tax abatement or incentive, That's probably the best case scenario, which doesn't happen that often. Or more often, it's a PDF map where someone has drawn out in marker the border of where that actually exists. And those are simple examples of the inputs that we bring in order to digest and visualize that in a very search-friendly format for our users. I think the next I wanted to talk about was with each of what we're focusing on, there's something really audacious and something really beautiful about the area that we're focusing on. I've been at this for about a year. Scott, Matthias, I think you might be on the longer end of your startup founders' journeys, and Atticus somewhere in between. Could each of you talk about what does success mean? What is the completion of the adventure that you started on several years ago with your businesses? What do you hope to accomplish? We'll start with Scott.
Damn.
This is your beauty pageant question. You better get this one right.
Right. That's not good. Because I get asked this question like every time you go raise money, for example, right? They ask it with a slight twist of like, what do you want from this thing? I didn't expect this company to do as well as it did. And as well as it is doing. I didn't start this company to like do a startup and et cetera. I really was like affected by the problem and really cared about the problem and kind of geeked out on it. And so the success for me is always, like I started the presentation today with this, we empower all people to always get what they earn. And we have stories come across our, one of the joys of working at our company is our people have a lot of like pride in the organization, and because you can see it every day, the people coming across the wire where you're really empowering them. And what the word empower means is the help. And what that boils down to comes right back to this issue of accessibility. And there's millions of contractors in the United States, and they need a lot of help around this. And it's hard to imagine it will ever get to that point, but we really want to, success to me and success to us is where the industry is really empowered so that people are getting a fair shake. And there's a level playing field between the massive players who have a lot of the money and a lot of the leverage, and then the rest of them. And, in some ways I've been at it a while and I've seen some success where today getting liens filed and that process is night and day different from when we started. And I think a lot of that is to our credit. Even though competitors have joined and like a lot of people do it now, I think it's a lot to our credit. And so I'm like proud of that and proud of how when more and more people join this industry and we keep turning that flywheel, we keep turning that gear, I think that success is where, this industry has a different complexion with respect to how people have access to be able to succeed in doing the thing that is their livelihood.
Yeah, I think it's probably similar for us. I mean, I would say universal access to opportunity, right? It is a housing continuum that actually works, where if you are a person who gets a job who is interested in obtaining safe and independent housing opportunities, you can do that. Mm-hmm. And that reality just doesn't exist today.
Yeah, and same here. For me, it's really when you see the joy in people's eyes when you solved a problem that they had. And that could be, for example, the book that you just showed, right? I sometimes still get emails where people like, oh, we are like a group of seniors and we have this, we always meet once a month and really made a difference. Or when I see people raising money on a pitch bleacher in our innovation center that we designed in Philadelphia. These are these moments. And then in between, you have like constant anxiety and stress because being an entrepreneur, it's never easy. And so that follows you through that with sometimes these moments of joy.
I think for us, what it is, it's this idea that can we create a system for the real estate industry where you don't have to have an $800 an hour New York City lawyer to get this tax credit? Can we create an environment where you don't have to have an army of Ivy League analysts and associates in order to put all the paperwork together to get this abatement program? And I think that the eventuality that we would love is that our 2-person development firm in New Haven, Connecticut, which is actually one of our customers, is able to be at a similar footing to a major investment bank on Wall Street, Manhattan, which is another one of our customers. And I think if we're able to do that, I think there's something really beautiful about this, the notion of REDIST. And I think a really kind of provocative question, maybe to finish it off, would be, do you see a world where your products are no longer needed?
I'm intrigued by a world of universal access to opportunity. As much as I'm an optimistic entrepreneur, I don't see that in my lifetime, at least. But we can certainly wish for it.
I think I can visualize it because our product is really kind of stupid. And when you start to unwind it and you get to that question of, is this even needed? Yeah. But I guess it is. But there's certainly, part of, even like with your company, REDIST, and our company, we unwind the complexity. It doesn't necessarily need to be there, but it is extremely hard to make complex things simple. Extremely, extremely hard. Yes. And I think that's kind of a human condition.
I think we found it's also hard to keep simple things simple too. It's always difficult to classify things. What about you, Matthias?
Well, thankfully, we all need places to live. So I think there's always an opportunity, but it would be fantastic if it would be just much more affordable and more simple to be developed and executed. But the magic sauce, I think it's not so easy to bring into the equation. So I think all of us are needed here somewhere, somehow. And maybe for the next venture.
Knock on
wood. Another one.
So we're at 1:15. So I want to say thank you to all the panelists, to Scott, Matthias, Atticus. Thank you so much for having us, Kayla, and thank you to the audience for spending some time with us. Kayla, I believe we will have breakout rooms for questions, right?
Yes, so everyone please head over to the Slack channel to ask any questions. I'll post this, the Slack channel really quickly to make sure everyone has it. But we can continue the conversation there. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Get the opportunity.